Test, test. 1, 2. All right, so we're going to take these 4 photos and we're going to make them into stencils on Figma using Image Tracer. This is the same exact process is going to be used when you're making your stencils in class. So let's go ahead and look at this first one. I've also realized I named both these stencil 2. Just go with it. Ignore it. You're going to have your photo. Whether you grabbed it offline, you took your own picture, or however you got it in Figma, congratulations. You're then going to right-click. You already should have the plugin Image Tracer installed. If not, go ahead and install that. You'll click on this, and you'll see that for me, it's already going to preload it into a looking stencil. Yours might have this drop-down where it says Original, and you have Show Path and Show Points. So you're going to be seeing the image as well as some red stuff. So for now, just go ahead. If it looks like that, great, but we're going to change a couple things. Make sure you have these settings so that you can see your stencils before you go ahead and make them. I'm going to click on where it says Original Image, go down to Trace Vector. I'm also going to click on Show Path and Show Points, so I do not see those in the preview. Another thing you definitely want to check out is when you click on View Docs, it's going to show you all kind of the, not all, but some of the numbers and what those mean on the Ignore Less Than, the Smoothness, and the Curve Optimism settings. So you'll see those down here. So I have mine set at Ignore Less Than 50, my Smoothness is 1.3, and my Curve Optimism is 99. What that means is for my Ignore Less Than, it's not going to be crazy detailed, like every little freckle or dimple or things on the person are not going to be recognized in that traced vector. And the reason for this is I want to have a pretty smooth and I want to have a less detailed vector so that it's going to work well when we make our stencils, whether we laser cut them, whether we 3D print them, or whether we get them cut through, I don't know, like a Cricut cutter or something. Also, the smoothness kind of helps with how smooth those curves are. It's going to, if things are pixelated, kind of round those things out. And the curve optimism is, for what I can tell, I actually haven't read any of this stuff. I've just looked at the pictures. It makes you have less vector points, which are easier to edit when you're going and editing your vector for your stencil. So I have those settings Ignore Less Than 100. As you can see, if I have Ignore Less Than 1, it's going to look a little bit different. I'm going to change this to Ignore Less Than 80. And let's see how that looks. Awesome. I'm also going to, I have my blur set to 5. If I had my blur set to 1, you'd see some things change a little bit, but let's actually change that blur to 2. And I think that looks pretty good. You can also play around with where, I actually don't know what the slider actually is called, but where things, I guess, show up and appear. So if you wanted to have things, I guess this plays with the contrast or something like that. So work with where you want that to be placed. I'm actually going to move this a little bit more to the left to kind of make it a little bit lighter. And I might work with a stencil that looks something like this. This looks pretty good. And I'm going to click Place Vector. I place that vector on top. I now have my stencil. Let's see if I go on up to, where is this, stencil 2? I actually think that my image might be outside. All right, let's just go ahead. This is in here. Where's my stencil 2? Okay, this should be called stencil 1. Let's change this in here. Students, just ignore what I'm doing, which is just absolute utter ridiculousness. Let's go ahead and place that in here. Okay, there we go. Now if I click on my image, I can hide it, and I have my stencil. Okay, let's go ahead and try this one right here. Let's go to Plugins. Let's click on Image Tracer, and let's go ahead and play around with this. Again, if you don't have it on a traced image, make sure you have it on traced image. And for this one, I'm going to be going ahead and kind of changing some things around a little bit. Let's just go with this preset. Nice. I think that looks a little bit better. I have my Ignore Less Than 80. Let's go Ignore Less Than 20. Again, just play around with this. Awesome. I like the details in the eyes. Let's go to Ignore Less Than 5. See what happens there. Okay. Cool. And maybe if I go to Ignore Less Than 1. All right. I can also play with this slider ever so slightly and get some more details in there. And I think this is going to work pretty well for what I'm trying to go for. And the threshold, is that what it changes actually? Oh, it's the threshold that changes. So you can actually type in here. Like I think I had mine at 108 and I actually liked that. Hit enter. Okay, so that's the threshold, I guess is what that sliding scale is. Let's click on Place Traced Vector. Awesome. Click on this image, hide that. We're looking pretty good. If you have one of someone that's a little bit smaller and most of their body is in here, let's go ahead and play with that kind of image trace. Let's click on Image Trace. Again, if you don't have it on traced vector, please change it to traced vector. That would be awesome. This is looking pretty good. You can zoom in and kind of see where things are. The zoom is a little glitchy, but that's okay. I really like how this is looking. I might even play around with Ignore Less Than 1. Let's go here, see if that changes things ever so slightly. Let's maybe play with the thresholds at 108. my threshold. I want to bring this down a little bit. Too much. Let's bring this threshold up to 113. That looks awesome. That's going to work really well for what I'm going for here. Let's click on place that vector. Okay. Let's go ahead and click on this image on stencil 3. Let's hide the image. And it looks like my stencil, let's hit Control C. Let's delete it. Actually, is not inside of my frame. Let's hit Control V. Make sure it's inside of that frame. There we go. And this last one, let's go ahead and right click, go to plugins, image tracer. And you can see I'm going pretty fast, but the more I do this, the better I get at it, the easier it's going to be for you to make your stencils. Let's go ahead and play around with the blur. Let's see what I do with my blur if it's 6. Okay, it's a little bit smoother, but I want there to be a little bit more detail. So let's change curve optimism maybe to, let's see what it does if I bring it down to 44. Whoops, not 444. 44. Okay, not too much changing there. Let's change the threshold ever so slightly. Let's bring it down. Okay, that looks pretty good. Pretty stoked on that. Let's bring it down even a little bit more. It was at 93. Ooh, I like that. It's at 77. I like how things are kind of a little bit blotchy on here. All right, let's go ahead and click place. Now what I'm going to do is click on hide, and I'm going to edit some things, okay? As you can see, I don't need a ton of, I actually just want to use the model's head and the face, so let's double click on here. Let's go ahead and start deleting a whole bunch of vector points by clicking and dragging. Click delete, drag delete, and I think I'm pretty happy with that. So that looks awesome. That looks great. Here's just a couple different examples as to how you could make, what are they called? Stencils in Figma using image tracer and a couple of the nuances that go into here. Shout out to Ember in my class. They did a wonderful job of showing me some kind of nuances and some different ideas and tricks to editing this. So please, if you have any questions, reach out. If you're in my class, if you're on YouTube and randomly watching this, I probably won't answer your questions, but I think you're awesome and I hope you have a good time designing. Take care.